different types of muscles present in our body. The first type of muscles are striped muscles. Second type of muscles are smooth muscles. And third type of muscles are cardiac muscles. The striped muscles are major. They are abundant in our body. The striped muscles are also referred as skeletal muscles because they are attached to the bones of endoskeleton, whereas the smooth muscles are referred as visceral muscles because they are found in visceral organs only, internal organs. The cardiac muscles are found in the heart of human beings. They are situated only within the heart of the human being. So, major type of muscles are striped muscles. The striped muscles are voluntary. Striped muscles are voluntary because their contraction and relaxation is under the willpower of the central nervous system, and smooth muscle fibers are involuntary. Similarly, cardiac muscles fibers are also involuntary. So, we cannot control the contraction and relaxation of smooth muscles and cardiac muscles, but we can control the contraction and relaxation of the striped muscles. The striped muscles are supplied with central nervous system. The striped muscles are supplied with the nerve fibers originating from central nervous system, say cranial nerves and spinal nerves, whereas the smooth muscle fibers, they are supplied with the autonomous nervous system. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves are supplied to smooth and cardiac muscle fibers. So, they are involuntary. So, these are the three different types of muscles: striped muscles, smooth muscles and cardiac muscles. So, here in the diagram you can see these are the skeletal muscles, otherwise referred as the striped or striated or voluntary muscles. These are the smooth muscles which are present in the internal organs like the wall of the gut, the wall of the uterus, the wall of the urinary bladder, the wall of the blood vessels, so on and so forth. And these are the cardiac muscles present only within the heart of human beings. So, before we discuss about the contraction, let us see the other type of muscles. So, these striped muscles which are found in the different parts of the body, they are categorized into different types. So, totally we are having about 639 muscles, and 634 muscles are paired and 5 muscles are unpaired. Most of the muscles are paired, whereas 5 muscles are unpaired. Of the total number of the muscle fibers, that is 639, 400 muscles are striated muscles, and the rest of the muscles are either smooth or cardiac muscles. So, most of the muscles found in the back region. So, of these striped muscles, about 180 muscles are seen on the back of our body, and the rest of the striped muscles are attached to either vertebral column or the bones of the forelimbs, hind limbs and so on and so forth. And the strongest muscle in our body is masseter muscle, the muscles of the jaw bones, masseter muscle. and largest muscle is gluteus maximus, that is buttock muscle, present in the buttock or the seat of the body. And sharpish fibers, they are nothing but calcified bundles. So sometimes they are responsible for connecting the periosteum with the internal matrix of the bone, because you know that the bone is provided with hard matrix. That matrix consists of number of lamellae, bone lamellae. So these fibers extend in between the bone lamellae and also connect the periosteal membrane. So white and yellow fibers parroting and holding the periosteal bone lamellae. And epiglottis muscle, also referred as Hilton muscle, that is present within the larynx, that is sound box, voice box. And gastrocnemius muscle, present in the shank of the body, that is hind limb below shank. Whereas the sartorius, that is the largest muscle of the body in the thigh, and stapedius, the smallest muscle of the body, and largest smooth muscle is present in the uterus. So we have referred the smooth muscles are present internally within the visceral organs. So largest smooth muscle is present within the uterus, particularly of the pregnant woman. And EMG, that is electromyography, that is nothing but graphical recording of the electrical currents produced by an active muscle during muscle contraction or muscle twitch. The simple contraction is referred as muscle twitch. So during muscle contraction, electrical currents are being produced, and such currents are being recorded by means of EMG, that is electromyography. Now besides, we can also recognize different types of muscles basing upon their action. Some of the muscles are called antagonistic muscles. Antagonistic muscles, pair of muscles which cause opposite movement. So if one muscle is responsible for forward movement and another one for backward movement. Say for example, flexor. So this is a flexor or flexing action of the forelimb. So forearm moves in upward direction because of the biceps muscle. Extensor, this is extension. Forearm moves in downward direction because of the triceps muscle. So two types of muscles, biceps and triceps muscles, are responsible for flexion and extension of the forearm. Then adductor and abductor muscles. So the adductor muscles are responsible for changing the body or brings the arm towards the body. So if the arm is brought towards the body, it is because of the adductor muscle. If the arm is moved away from the body, this is because of adductor muscle. The upper as well as the lower arms move away because of the deltoid muscles. Then pronator, if the palm is rotated downwards, such muscles are referred as pronator muscles, and the muscle is referred as pronator teres. And if the palm is rotated upwards, so this is downward and this is upward. If the palm is rotated upwards, it is a supinator muscle. So one is a pronator and another one is supinator. Then dilation. So we know that internal organs are provided with sphincter muscles. So circular smooth muscles are referred as sphincter muscles, which are present around the openings of certain ducts. So if that sphincter muscle dilates, it is what we refer it as dilation, because of which the diameter of that opening increases. Whereas if that sphincter muscle contracts, then that opening gets constricted. So it is constrictor, closing of the aperture. So opening of the sphincter muscle and closing of the sphincter muscle, that is responsible for opening of that particular opening or closing. Then depressor, lower jaw moves downwards. So, if we move the jawbone lowers, it is referred as depressor muscle. Downward movement of the jaw muscle is because of depressor muscle, and the name of the muscle is depressor mandibularis. And if you move the lower jaw upwards, this is elevator muscle. So, lower jaw moves in upward direction because of masseter muscle, and of course, that is the strongest muscle. So, masseter, which is responsible for movement of the lower jaw upwards, whereas the downward movement is because of the depressor muscle. Now, if you observe the properties of the different muscles which are present in the different organs of the body, and definitely it is because of the contraction they exhibit either one or other type of the movement. Muscle twitch. So, simple contraction of a muscle to a simple stimulus is referred as muscle twitch, response to a single stimulus. Simple contraction of a muscle to a stimulus is called muscle twitch. And during the muscle contraction, we can come across with the three different phases, namely latent phase, contraction phase and relaxation phase. So, contracted phase, in between the contracted phase and relaxation phase, you can come across with latent phase. Then refractory period. So, the time interval between one contraction and other contraction. So, the period during which a muscle will not respond. So, only after completion of one contraction, then only the muscle will contract. That particular period is refractory period. And continuous contraction of a muscle is referred as a tetanic contraction or tetanus. Continued state of contraction because of a successive stimuli. If a muscle is given with a successive stimuli, the muscle goes on exhibiting contractions, then it is referred as tetanic contraction or tetanus. Muscle fatigue. If a muscle is accumulated with lactic acid, so lactic acid accumulation occurs within the muscle due to anaerobic contraction. So, whenever a muscle contracts continuously, definitely the anaerobic conditions occur. The anaerobic contraction of the muscle is responsible for accumulation of the lactic acid. Accumulation of the lactic acid causes fatigue, muscle fatigue or muscle pain. So, muscle fatigue, the inability of the muscle to contract, whenever the pain occurs within the muscle due to accumulation of the lactic acid, the muscle cannot contract. The inability of the muscle to contract due to lactic acid accumulation is called muscle fatigue. And definitely whenever a muscle has to contract, it has to be supplied with a stimulus. Without stimulus, the muscle cannot contract. Unless you provide a minimum intensity of a stimulus for the contraction of the muscle, never a muscle contracts. That minimum intensity of the stimulus that is required for muscle contraction is called threshold stimulus. Threshold stimulus. The minimum intensity of the stimulus that is required for muscle to contract is referred as threshold stimulus. That is otherwise called threshold intensity or Rio base. To produce a contraction, it must be stimulated by a nerve impulse. Whatever the stimulus it may be, either mechanical or electrical or thermal, whatever it may be. Unless a muscle is given with a stimulus, it cannot contract. And suppose if that stimulus is minimum less than the minimum threshold stimulus, muscle cannot contract. If that stimulus is extraordinary or super stimulus, then there will be no change in the muscle contraction. That is what we refer it as all or none principle. If a muscle fiber contracts in response to a stimulus, it contracts to the maximum account. If there is no such stimulus or threshold stimulus, no contraction occurs. That is all or none principle. Then rigor mortis, another term associated with the muscle contraction. Whenever an individual dies, the muscles reach to a state of irreversible contraction. So, extreme rigidity of the muscle after the death is called rigor mortis. So, once the contraction occurs and the muscles cannot relax, this phenomenon is referred as rigor mortis. Then trippi or staircase phenomenon. Whenever we record the muscle contraction, whenever we record the electrical impulses emitted by the muscle contraction, and almost they appear like a staircase due to continuous stimulus. This is what we refer it as staircase phenomenon, the repeated stimulus of a single muscle, and it is being recorded by means of the kymograph in the form of a staircase like structure. So, it is referred as trippi or staircase phenomenon. So, these are the different types of the muscles which are present in our body and exhibiting the contraction, because of which the various organs move, or even the entire individual moves from place to place because of the contraction or relaxation of the different types of the striped muscles. Whereas, the internal organs which are provided with the smooth muscles and their contraction or relaxation which we cannot control, and we do not know the contraction or relaxation of the smooth muscles or even the cardiac muscles, because they are supplied with the autonomous nervous system. So, that is about the different types of the muscles and particularly the different types of the striped muscles.